I'm out of practice. So like,
rev it up.
See if I remember how to do this. Got to get the dust off. Pickle, hit the air raid siren sign for Monday Morning Fallout. Monday Morning Fallout, of course, when we overreact to the football weekend. And boy, howdy, what a weekend to overreact to.
Holy week one.
It's great because, like, we finally have some data to actually dig through, and now we just, like, get to, like, sift through the wreckage.
Right.
So,
and there was a lot of wreckage.
Yes, it is. So we're very excited about that. Let's start with my 3 big thoughts. Thought number 1 is 1 week enough. Week 1 is always such a strange thing for us. And I think for anyone who pays a lot of attention to Texas high school football, it's always strange because we spend basically, like, we start kind of finalizing our picks for the magazine. I'll just speak from our perspective. We start finalizing our picks for the magazine in about May, right? So, like, in May, we're like, all right, since May, we've kind of had these teams in our head of what we think they are. And the longer you think about it without anything changing, because there's no games being played, right? Unless there's an injury here or there that might change your perspective.
Right.
But there's no data to back that, to change your mind. They kind of get crystallized in your brain. And so then when something does happen that would perhaps change your mind, your brain is left in a puddle. And you're wondering,
it's like, no, this is not how it's supposed to be.
Who Alex Macked my brain? Because there's so much to digest from this weekend because there was a lot of chaos. So now part of it is things that you can understand. So, for example, let me start at the smallest classification with 6-man football.
Okay.
6-man football, as you know, because the contenders, like, 6-man football coaches are really good at self-sorting themselves.
Yes.
And saying the good teams are going to play the good teams in non-district, and the struggling teams are going to play the struggling teams in non-district, right? They're good at self-sorting. As a result, you get all these bangers in non-district, okay? And so, for example, Rankin beat Balmorhea last week. Rankin beat Balmorhea. Rankin's the number 6 team in 1A Division 1. Balmorhea's the number 2 team in 1A Division 2. And so then I am left with looking at that and going, isn't that about right?
Yep. Isn't that how that
team's
should
bigger,
be?
so you have to take that into account. That team's a state-ranked team. It's obviously pretty good, but that is the number 2 team in 1 division. So, like, you're left with these things. There are other things. Like, another one that I was watching was Duncanville and South Oak Cliff.
Yep.
Duncanville and South Oak Cliff. Duncanville wins 24-10 or 23-10, I think was the final. They scored a late touchdown. It was a one-score game for 95% of that game, and they scored a late touchdown to pull away. That's the number 4 team in 6A and the number 1 team in 5A Division 2. Isn't that exactly how it's supposed to go?
Right. I think another example of that would be Hallettsville and Shiner.
So that's an interesting one.
Shiner is number 1 in 2A Division 1, but they're playing Hallettsville's 3 Division 1. That's 2 whole classifications.
A full classification,
Yeah.
2 whole divisions up. They're playing there and they lose, right? So what I'm left to do, and the way that I approach the week 1 things, and your mileage may vary, certainly overreact if you want. This is a safe space to overreact. You see the nuclear symbol down here. This is a place to overreact. But what I end up doing is I start looking for what the game looked like, how it entailed, and what particular units looked like. For example, let's talk about Gilmer. A big question coming into this game was, what does Gilmer's offense look like without Brandon Tennyson?
And then there was
We have a response. The answer is
it's still a
pretty
Tennyson.
stinking good as they beat Chapel Hill and they hang a 50 burger on them with Caden Tennyson, his brother, at quarterback. So,
who is just a freshman or a sophomore?
I think a sophomore. So for me, what I do is that for now, and it's week 1, it's only one piece of data, but that answers that question for me. Let's take another one, and that I think this is tougher to parse. But let's take what happened to Allen. Allen welcomes in the number 1 team in the country, St. John Bosco out of California, and St. John Bosco launches them into the sun.
Right.
The final score, I didn't even see the final score.
I did not either. It started turning into Murderer's Row.
Final was 52-14, and it was not that close.
No.
52-14. Bosco could have hung 100 if they wanted to. I don't necessarily fault Allen for losing to that team. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's necessarily an issue. But my prior coming into this game was I have concerns about the Allen defense. Mm-hmm. And giving up 52, and especially I think there was like 35 or 38 in the first half.
Right.
Kind of gives me some concern, right? And then there's another one that kind of comes out of left field. And that's New Braunfels beating Denton Ryan. Mm-hmm. Denton Ryan was a number 5 team or number 2 team in 5A Division 1. And 5A Division 1 was chaos. Aledo got beat by Parish Episcopal. College Station got beat. I mean, it's chaos. Just wait till the rankings come out. But with Denton Ryan, they're playing a New Braunfels team that is a third. We got them projected third in their district. Mm-hmm. We think they're a decent team, and it's a 6A team. Mm-hmm. We think they're a decent team, but they are not a state-ranked 6A team.
No.
Now, maybe they'll get there, and maybe that loss is going to age a lot better. Mm-hmm. But for me, one of the issues that I like, this is a red flag game for Ryan for me. This is a red flag because there were issues with the offense. Mm-hmm. They scored on special teams. They got to third. I think they lost 34-33 was the final. Mm-hmm. But Ryan scored on defense and on special teams. So they needed that to get. So there's concerns on offense. There's concerns on defense, giving up 34 points to New Braunfels and giving up 500 yards of total offense.
That pushed the agenda on the questions arising because I feel like there have always been questions about that offense since Seth Hennigan has left, but the defense was able to hold steady, and so it's one of those things, if this proves to be true and the defense is down, that's where the actual issues come because they can stick in it with defense, but if not, then I don't know what you're supposed to do.
I'm not here to tell you that if you lost in week 1, you should get out a shovel.
Right.
And I'm not here to tell you that if you won in week 1, you should start playing the parade. What I am here to tell you is that if you dig into the data a little bit more, there are things to be gleaned from week 1 that we'll see in week 2 and the next couple of weeks whether or not those hold up. Mm-hmm. So there's thought number 1. Thought number 2, week 0 reality check. So the FBS game in the college football ranks in Texas in week 0 was North Texas going out to UTEP in a week in a conference game in week 1, week 0 rather. And North Texas comes away with a win. They pull away in the third quarter and never really look back. I thought for the first half both teams looked pretty sloppy. Mm-hmm. I thought it wasn't particularly crisp, but one team settled in and it was North Texas. Here are the things that I'm encouraged by. For North Texas, like we went into this year wondering, could this defense take a step?
Yes.
Could they take a step?
We've been wondering that for years now.
The early returns, it's one game. Mm-hmm. The early returns are positive on that.
That defensive line was very impressive in the second half. They
got after it.
And I don't know if that says more about UTEP's offensive line not being up to par, but they were giving Gavin Hardison a terror in the backfield.
Yes. He was having a tough time. For UTEP, this is a team we had really high expectations for. Mm-hmm. And to start the year 0-1 really feels like a lot of the air is getting let out of the balloon. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not here to bury them. And maybe North Texas is a lot better than we thought they'd be. But for me, that serves a reality check.
Especially at a home game. When you have a home game with a sold-out crowd, like you have to capitalize on that.
I think so.
Because they're not going to get teams like UTSA. I think that's pretty well known. Yeah. But North Texas is one that you could.
That's one of those in their range that they should win. Another one, and maybe this flew under your radar, but Stephen F. Austin kind of got the boots taken to him by Jacksonville State.
Yep.
Stephen F. Austin's a team that we think has an outside shot of being a contender in the FCS ranks in the national scope. Did not look good in week 1. The offense really scuffled, and the defense had trouble containing that offense, which is coached by Rich Rodriguez. Remember him? So there's a little bit of a reality check there as well. So a little disappointing, I would say, for what we saw from the college football ranks in Texas, with the exception of North Texas, who's got to be feeling pretty darn good. Thought number 2. Thought number 3, iron sharpens iron. I want to see if I can pull up this tweet that I found from Josh Gibson, the head coach of the Pleasant Grove Hawks. Pleasant Grove Hawks took on Brock on Friday night, and they won. Great win. Really, really impressive win. They tweeted out something, and so he tweeted out, this is at 11:09, so obviously the game's over. He said it was 28-7, Pleasant Grove beat Brock. Quote, super classy program in Brock football. You won't have bigger fans than Pleasant Grove. You sharpened us, we sharpened you, and we both ain't scared to play big games. Good luck next week. That is, to me, a good distillation of what we can take from week one. Because there's a lot of contenders that punched up that lost, that took it on their chin. Lorena. Lorena goes to China Spring and they lose. Now, China Spring looked good.
Yep.
Cash McCollum looked like the real deal there in that kind of new look China Spring offense. But they were, they took it on the chin. They punched up and they got punched. South Oak Cliff punched up against Duncanville and got punched, right?
Shiner, Refugio.
Shiner punched up. Refugio punched up these programs. But go look at what happened to Lorena last year. Lorena loses their first two games to both to eventual state champions in Franklin and China Spring. They go on a run. That is, to me, a distillation of what these teams can gain by doing that. They can go out there and they can go up against teams that are going to that are the types of teams that they're going to have to beat, the quality of teams they're going to have to beat to make a run to a state championship. That is it. So, yeah, Brock lost. They played a state-ranked 4A team, and they lost. I don't think that reflects poorly on Brock.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
Well, and
now,
they're doing it again. They're going to play Hershey this week.
But it's different. So here's the thing, and perhaps you're thinking, but Tepper, aren't you speaking out of both sides of your mouth? Because what were you saying about Denton Ryan? I think the team that you're punching up against matters. I also think that the team that, like, the way that the game went matters. Do you know what I mean? For Brock, obviously they got to figure out the offense, right? Give up 7 points, or they only scored 7 points. But they were playing a top 5 team in a classification above them.
Whose defense is historically pretty darn
Correct.
good.
So, for me, there's a lot to digest and it's a lot to sift through. You don't want to make broad declarations, but there is something positive to be taken from punching up.
Well, I guess this isn't necessarily punching up. It is in the same classification, but when Fort Bend Ridgepoint signed up to play Austin Westlake, and honestly, they were tied 14-14 before the Westlake machine got on, but that's huge.
Yes, I agree. That's a good example. It's an excellent example. El Paso Eastwood playing South Lake Carroll. Got their teeth kicked in. But they obviously want to win. I'm not here to say Julio Lopez didn't want to win that game. What I'm saying is they got what they wanted.
Right.
They wanted to get challenged by an elite team. And they got challenged.
Make the travel. That's another thing. It doesn't have to be necessarily on the field, per se.
Agreed. So there's 3 big thoughts. 3 helmet stickers. A helmet sticker to the aforementioned New Braunfels Unicorns and their running back, Tyree Johnson. Ran 25 times for 101 yards and a touchdown rushing. Had 2 catches for 83 yards and a touchdown receiving in the Unicorns. Big win over Denton Ryan. A helmet sticker to UTEP wide receiver Tyron Smith. I thought he was the real star of the UTEP offense on Saturday night. 7 catches, 127 yards, and a touchdown through the air receiving. I was impressed by him. If he's going to step up, then I think they've got an opportunity to make some noise if they can settle in, especially get the rest of that offense going. And finally, a helmet sticker to Spring Westfield quarterback P.J. Hatter.
I think that's an outstanding quarterback name.
Did you see what Spring Westfield did?
I did.
Spring Westfield put a hurtin' on their week 1 opponent. They beat Cy Park 63-3.
Yeah, that.
Remember, Cy Park was a team. Now they've lost a lot.
Yes.
But that's a Cy Park team that may be reloading. But they you don't beat anybody by 60.
No, when we saw
in week 1,
when we saw the brewings of that, them getting up into the 50s, I think it might have been Steps sent a tweet in the Slack, and we were like, "Holy cow!"
P.J. Hatter goes 18 of 21 for 360 yards and 6 touchdowns passing, and had 12 yards on the ground too. P.J. Hatter, a name to know there at Spring Westfield. 3 teams to watch. Let's stay in the Houston area. Let's talk about C.E. King.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, C.E. King's a 6A, and they were playing a 5A, okay? So let's not go crazy. But they took it to Crosby.
They dropped
Crosby,
a on them.
who was a state semifinalist last year. Crosby, who was in a title game the year before. And they beat him 63-7. 63-7. Now, do you know who they play this week?
The Allen Eagles. And
the segment's called Teams to Watch. Keep an eye on that because you want to talk about two programs that right now the trajectory seems opposite directions.
And you want to talk about like using data points to really figure something out in week 2. That's this game.
Very interested in that.
A lot of questions
George
get
Young
answered for
and
both.
The Panthers looked really good. Keep an eye on them. Another team to watch, Hitchcock.
I've been beating this drum since state 7-on-7.
I know. So Hitchcock goes and they beat Refuria. Okay? Now, again, that's a 3A over a 2A, so we don't want to go super crazy.
Right.
But, first of all, they beat them 49-12. Beat them 49-12.
Right.
This is a team that – did they win the state 7-on-7 tournament?
No, they played in the finals.
Played in the final. They were in getting close to the end.
Yeah, we watched about 3 of their state 7-on-7 games. They have a 2025 quarterback that is outstanding, and they have just about a core of 3 different receivers that could just go. And we wondered when they put the pads on, like, was this going to be an actual thing? At the moment I realized it was Hitchcock, I was like, they're actually good.
This team looked the part. The offense looked fantastic. Refurio, I think, has got they're changing around their offense right now. They're monkeying with their offense, so we don't know exactly what that offense is going to look like. But keep an eye on Hitchcock. I don't think that's a fluke. I think Hitchcock is for real. Keep an eye on a big game this week against East Bernard. And finally, keep an eye on Bay City. Now you're probably thinking, Tepper, what? Why would I keep an eye on Bay City? I'll tell you why you should keep an eye on Bay City. They beat Sweeney 68-0.
Yeah.
They were 16-point underdogs according to the computer in that game, and they beat them 68-0. Now, maybe there's something wrong with Sweeney. We'll find out a lot more this week against Edna. Okay, they get Edna, who's a certified contender in the 3A ranks.
Yes.
If they go out there and do something like that to Edna, it's time to start paying attention to Robert Jones's
Yeah,
Black
because
Cats
are they in Region 3 or 4?
They're Region 3.
3, okay.
4 division.
I thought I was going to say Edna's usually the favorite in Region 4.
Yeah. 3 to C. Let's look forward to week 2. I guess I could have put a college football game on here, but I didn't. I just too
We have the high school juices
juiced up on high school
flowing.
football. Denton Guyer and Aledo.
Yep.
So Denton Guyer looked fabulous in their week 1 win.
Jackson Arnold
looked
wheels.
the truth. He looked great. Now they go to Aledo, an 0-1 Aledo team. Aledo, who has now lost back-to-back games for the first time since, like 2008?
Yep.
Big test for Aledo. 0-2 Aledo is not outside the realm of possibility here. But
And again, this
Guyer
is
will be
punching
tested.
up,
but Guyer will be tested for sure. Thursday night, Little Cypress Mauriceville and West Orange Stark in Bridge City.
this is a fantastic coaching matchup, too.
Great coaching matchup here with Hiawatha Hickman there. Now 1-0 as the head coach at West Orange Stark, taking on Eric Peavy there at Little Cypress Mauriceville. Both of them were winners in week 1. Really interesting Southeast Texas matchup there at Bridge City. I believe Steph's going to be there.
And I think we should have this on Texan Live. I will verify.
Ooh, I might have to tune into that. And finally, Cisco and Wall. These two teams always get together, and I like it. I'm glad they do. This is a really intriguing matchup. Cisco was a winner over Clyde, 41-13, and that was again a 2A over 3A, and they beat them pretty handily. Wall took down Eastland 49-20. So these are two teams that are feeling good about themselves right now that are going to collide out there in Wall, Texas, and that will be a fun matchup. So that's 3 to C, and that is Monday Morning Fallout.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you would like more and to be notified when they come out, go ahead and click that subscribe button right down there. You can also watch Texas Football Today every day live at noon on TexasFootball.com, Facebook, Twitch, and right here on YouTube. For more of the best coverage of Texas football in the Lone Star State, go to TexasFootball.com/subscribe.